Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now here I have my SIG P365 XL. This for me has been my carry firearm for a while now, and when I took it to the range recently, I realized I was pulling everything in further than I thought I should. This has happened a couple of times, and I know I need a lot of practice. Trust me, that's the first problem. But second is, I'm pretty sure that I'm knocking my front sight out of alignment. And I'm onto a theory. I haven't quite proven it, but I think it to be true. And so I have my Kydex sheath here. It's a little bit stiff. It's a little bit rigid. And I noticed that as I draw, and again, this is all coming from the need to practice and the things that I'm doing as a fairly new firearm owner, but as I'm practicing, I'm pretty sure that at times I'm knocking my front sights. And as I look at it here, it seems to just be a little bit off. Now, this is a dovetailed sight, and the fact that it's off means that I would be potentially pushing the firearm to the left. And if that's the case, well, in the past, I have used a sight puller. Now, this one here was very cumbersome and not real great and fairly cheap, and it got me started. But the people at Kitvance reached out to me to send me a beautifully made AccuCraft sight pusher, and what we're going to do today is take a look at it in a little bit of detail. And here, well, that, my friends, is a nicely machined piece of aluminum with beautiful handles, a bunch of adjustment, and hopefully for me, the ability to do just a nicer job with my firearms maintenance, adjusting my sights, getting them sighted in so that I can actually hit something. But in today's video, this is going to be kind of a first look at this, a discussion about how you set this up. I'm going to do the absolute best that I can and kind of get used to it myself, and then hopefully I can adjust my sights, make it to the range, and hit my target. So with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you, and if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. Now, before we get too far, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Kitvance who did provide this for review. And so here, again, you can see this AccuCraft sight pusher. Now, this does come with the user's manual. Comes with a little package with some spare parts and some tools. But the main thing here, of course, being the tool itself. And as you look across, you can see a number of different components. Now, I'm probably not going to get the naming of all this exactly right, but you can see here, it is graduated. It has both your millimeters and both your inches. Here is your actual sight pusher itself. It is adjusted with this nice wheel, and you can see as it travels from left to right and right to left, you end up with the ability to tighten your actual slide into this mechanism. Now, this little cradle here holds everything in place as you're using this, which is very nice, and you can see a number of different knobs here. Now, you also have the ability to hold it down in the vertical elevation. You have a couple of different adjustment knobs here. So this is going to be, and I'm not going to say finicky by any means, and compared to the piece of garbage that I was using before, which, I mean, look at how really accurate could this possibly be, and talk about finicky. But what I'm trying to say is, because this has a number of adjustments and the ability to really do a good job, you're going to need to learn a little bit. You're going to have to take your time. You're going to have to figure it out in the right way to dial everything in. So that's exactly what I'm here to do today. And I'm hoping by the end of this, I can get my front sights a little bit more dialed in. Now, just in theory, as you're looking at this, again, these are dovetailed sights, and I am pretty much good in elevation, maybe a little low, which is not surprising, but I am definitely too far to the left. And so if you think about it, taking a look at it here, my front sight to me appears to be too far to the right. So the further and further and further my sights are to the right means that if my sights were further to the right and I'm trying to align, if my front sight was right here, in order for me to center it With my rear sights, well, there you go. I'm turning the gun to the left to align it, and I think that's what's happening. So again, it's subtle and it's hard to see, but I feel like my front sight is too far to the right. So my job now is to push it back to the left. And so the first thing I'm going to do is take this down, and the SIGs are very easy to work on, which is awesome. So I have greatly enjoyed this about this, just super clean, super easy, and everything comes apart for a basic field strip in a matter of seconds. And at this point, I am pretty much ready to start mounting this. And so these are the top knobs. I am going to back these off and probably actually just remove them so that we can take a look at this in detail real quick. Which, my first impression, nice threads. Everything seems to thread very nicely. A couple of washers here. This here is called your height adjustment screw. And as we slide this off, again, you'll notice this here, that is your height adjustment screw. So as you're turning this, you're dialing that up and down. Again, feeling pretty nice on the threads. Now your side knobs here, you use to hold that slide in place. You'll notice this section here has a cutout. This section does not. And we'll figure this out, but I am assuming that's so your actual slide can fit down inside. And you'll notice here, that's part of your spring assembly. So that would fit down nicely right inside there. Now the ends here, as we take a look at this, I'm curious what these are made of. They feel like they might be metal. You'll notice that they do have a flat side, that flat side riding along the aluminum. So as you back this off, if it gets stuck or bound up, you just need to make sure that's in the appropriate orientation there so that it clears. And now that that's in place, I would suggest, and I think what I'm going to do, is put some nice felt pads on here. There's more than enough room to do that. And so I'm going to show you what I am going to do, and I think you might like this. So here I have felt pads, which are furniture pads. They're sticky on the back, felt on the front, and they're almost the exact perfect size to fit on here. And I just need to cut them a little bit to kind of square off the bottom, and then I'll get a little alcohol and clean this up, and I am going to mount those felt pads right on here. And so now you can see I have mounted these felt pads, and just real quick here, squeezing them together for a minute, just compress those down. Yeah, and those should just adhere so nicely. It just needs to have that little bit of foam on there, that little bit of felt, just to protect the slide. Again, I feel like this is metal, and I just don't want that metal to metal contact. So little ounce of prevention, right? Ounce of prevention. And so with that all set, this here does appear to be some sort of a polymer. In fact, you can see actually mine has just a tiny little chunk missing, which seems to have come from the factory like that. Not a big deal. I don't think that's going to impact anything. You'll notice this is a bit curved as you look at it. It'll be interesting to see how that does sitting on top of the slide. But at this point, I'm going to start getting everything mounted up. So at least at this point, I feel pretty good that I've protected my slide itself. And try to keep this reasonably even. So as we get this in here, trying to keep it even and not twisting to the best of my ability. And just holding that in place nicely for now. Now your actual slide pusher here, as we take a look at it, you'll notice that there are a couple of different ways this can go. My actual sight is very square, and I think this is going to be all I need. So I'm going to get this down and into place. Now keep in mind, again, you will need to adjust the height, but that looks like it's going to work. And the polymer does seem to be cradling onto here pretty well. I have a little bit of adjustment that I can play with. Dropping the washers, and these are pretty much just to hold this into place. I'm not going to squash anything down. I'm just going to go very easy and barely finger tight, and that's it. Tightening down everything just easily. Again, I'm not going to really crush anything, but you'll notice I'm going front to back, keeping everything as square as I possibly can. Little even adjustments here, and that's probably about fine. Just put a tiny bit of pressure on this, and as you take a look, hopefully the slide doesn't fall out of here, but that's sitting down and inside, and I'm completely off. My puller is nowhere near where it needs to be. So what that means is I do need to slide it forward, aligning the muzzle now with the actual pusher here. And at this point, I can go back to tightening everything up nice and even. And again, little trial and error here, figuring it out, learning what works. Everybody's firearms are going to be a little bit different. So just kind of talking through my mentality and what I'm going through here. But tightening that down. Tightening all this down just enough. Much better. And as you take a follow-up look here, now you can see how that's going to go. Now, the next thing for me is I need to drop this down to the appropriate height where it's going to push the actual front sight, but not drag along the slide. So I'm just going to take a quick second, get everything height-wise where it needs to be, and I think we're good. So what I need to show you is that because of the height of this piece right here, this goes down so far that I'm not even making it to the height of my sights just yet. But inside here, there does seem to be a little set screw. Now, this comes with the hex keys. And I'm going to drop this in here and take this off, I think. Which, once this pulls off, allows me to pull this nut and washer off, put this back on, and hopefully this all sits okay now. But we'll try that. That's better. And now this will go all the way down. So for me and the height of my sights, I did need to make that little bit of an adjustment. And at this point, I should be able to go back onto this. So let's give this a try. And now that this is all back and into place, taking a look at it here, yes, I will be able to now get on my sights. And you can see that the clearance here is going to be very, very close. I really don't want to drag this on top of the slide. So as we look at this here and we move this around, we're going to need to check this for clearance. And I can tell you that is going to hit. So the good thing is at this point, I can go up with no problem. So what I'm going to do is loosen these. Very simple. And then thread this down, which is a very quick and easy adjustment to make. So just loosen these a little bit, make your adjustment on the height screw, and now you can see this is literally about perfect. So could I drop that down a tiny bit more? Sure, but I think that's going to bear on that the way I need, and it should push it. Now, I do need to go to the left, because remember I said I felt like my slide was a little far to the right. So what I'm going to do is actually crank this all the way to here. Now, I have not made any marks for my adjustment. And that is one thing that could certainly be done. And now that you're starting to see this, does it look like those dots on the sight are off to the side? Remember, when I was looking down the barrel, it was to the right. So looking at it now, it would be further to the left. And I feel like that is off. So I'm just going to eyeball everything. I feel like my eyes are good enough to see this. So I'm going to eyeball that, and I'm going to slide that this way. And the nice thing is, if you really did take measurements, I mean, you have the graduations here. So you should be able to get this literally perfect. So as I take a look at this, it is starting to bind up. And I'll tell you, what I really want to do is get this absolutely as low as possible while I do this, so it's not stressing on it and twisting it around. I really want this just to slide in the dovetail. So the closer I get this to almost touching the slide, the better. So making little micro adjustments to the height will go a long way. And another little mistake that I made is I tightened that set screw a little too tight, which when I did that, it literally clamped completely tight to the screw. Now, I've since backed it off, not to the point where this will fall off, but look, at least now that will spin freely and allow me to make more finite adjustments. So you just got to be a little bit careful with this. But so far, I do have the ability to make the adjustments that I need to make, and that's a big deal. So far, really good. Just takes a little bit of practice and getting used to. And once now at least at this point, now that I'm familiar with this, I won't make some of the same mistakes twice. So far, actually really good. And so last but not least here, you can see now that I've dropped this even lower, like as low as I could pretty much get it to the site, that's going to push a lot cleaner, but that's not going to hit the slide. So that's got a little bit of a play in it, but that's okay. And that's going to be enough to slide that over to the side without causing damage to the slide and not racking or twisting. So I'm happy with the height of that adjustment. And so now getting into it, twisting this, I'm taking up any of the slack. And is this pushing? Yes. Very subtle, but it was subtle to begin with. And as you look here, I hope I didn't go too far. I might have. So now I need to go back the other way just a touch. But it did move, and I'm happy with that. Although in retrospect, now that I've backed this off, I think that looks to be, pretty darn close. It is real easy to trick your eyes. I might take a couple measurements, but yeah, I need to go back the other way just a touch. Which at this point, I think I'm gonna call it for now. Good enough, I've made the adjustment. We're gonna take a quick look at this, but I think that's enough now that I could go to the range, start to dial in my shot, and really understand whether or not I was whacking my front sight out of alignment. And at least, I could also bring this to the range real easy and just have a general ability to make minor changes on the fly. But one thing that I do want to point out is right here. If I have the ability to take a measurement of how much of that relief is showing on each side, it should really give me an indication of how centered my sights are. And it looks to me like at this point, I have a little more showing now on this side, which means now my sights are slightly further to the left. But I'm willing to give this a try. It's going to need a range session for me to really see it and figure it out. But I'm going to know pretty quick if I'm hitting the target. So I'm going to go with this. And so with that, let's get this gun put back together and head to the range. We'll see how I do. It's probably just me and not the gun. I'm not the best shot, but let's go for it. Just a real quick dry fire test. Not too far off. Maybe I'm a little right now, which is at least different from where I was. There we go. Not bad. think I'm seeing this a little better now. All right, well, that's enough to get me started. Let's just try to hit some paper at the range.
Look at your barrel, there's no cereal now.
One with the round circle, even though it's the most expensive one I own. I seem to do better with that one.
Right about the same price.
But I've got that Hollison. I've got that Vortex. If you want to try either one of them, try them.
And so, all right, guys, there you have it. A look at this AccuCraft sight pusher provided by the people at Kitvance. Now, after some preliminary testing of my SIG P365 at the range, not too bad. I actually did get fairly close. Now, this is only a 7-yard test, and my grouping is absolutely not the best. However, I did definitely start to come back to center. What you did not see is how far off I was at first. I mean, I was literally like double this distance away from centered. And at least at this point, yes, granted, my shots are a little bit low, but they are fairly centered, all things considered. So this was my first grouping of 10. And then, well, definitely making a vast improvement. I had a couple wide. I was shooting a little wide, and then I just kind of took my time, settled in, and really started nailing the target. And this overall looks pretty good. So again, not perfect. I mean, that's not on the sight pusher. That's on me. But as I grow and gain experience, having good quality maintenance tools, that's just a must. I mean, going from this crazy thing to this, well, now I have the ability to really dial things in. I could have brought this to the range with me. It's heavy, but I could have put it in my range bag. I could have definitely got it there, and I could have made some adjustments in the field if I really wanted to. But having this here, absolutely perfect. Now you saw I did make a few little minor modifications to things, kind of tweaked it out, made it work with my firearm. Very easy. I think this is going to work for most people. If you have a polymer handled firearm, you know, with your typical slide and typical geometry and, you know, something along these lines, typical carry gun, should not be too much of a problem in the dovetailed sights for me, allowing me to slide them around. So all in all, very effective. And so again, I would like to say thank you very much to the people at Kitvance who did provide this for review. And for the rest of you, if you like this content, do me a favor, take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it, that's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.